Welcome to Debating Dating, a podcast with me, Rachel Graham.
And me, Marc Jennings.
We're two single friends, and every episode we'll be discussing our differing perspectives on an aspect of modern dating.
We'll be sharing our honest insights and experiences as platonic pals who are not afraid to give each other the unvarnished truth.
Or laugh at each other's bullshit. So,
this week we are talking about love languages.
Yay!
By popular demand, a lot of you who follow us on social media have requested this episode. And despite what Rachel might insist, I'm not opposed to it. I think it's an interesting one to talk about. Now, love languages, you might be familiar with that term, maybe from Twitter or social media, or even someone's dating profile where you'll see people saying hilarious things like, my love language is watching the US Office, or, sending each other TikToks or going to McDonald's or whatever, right? But actually, where the phrase originates from it's from a book that came out in 1992 by this guy called Dr. Marc David Chapman, who wrote this book in jail after murdering John Lennon. And
is it not Gary Chapman?
Oh, it's Gary, so it's not the guy that killed... Oh, okay.
No.
I thought that's why it was so popular with women, because know how they like murderers and writing to them in jail and all that, like Ted Bundy. Okay, I'm going to need to... I've done the wrong type of research by the sounds of it.
Oh my god, you fucked up already.
No, it's by this guy, Dr. Gary Chapman, wrote this book in 1992, The 5 Love Languages. Now, if you were to ask me what the 5 love languages are, I would probably tell you French, Italian, Spanish, Portuguese, and of course, the most prominent language of love, German. But apparently it's not that. What are the 5 love languages, Rachel?
5 love languages are words of affirmation.
Okay, so just being overly soppy.
The next one's like quality time.
Never leaving them alone, okay.
Physical touch.
Getting a wee bit too handsy.
Acts of service.
Just waiting on them hand and foot and potentially going down on them.
And receiving gifts.
Oh, of course, the old classic, trying to buy them love. Okay.
I'm on board with a lot of those, so it's fine.
Yeah, hey, free drinks at the bar, you've got their attention, that's great. So they're the 5, so what's that all about then?
Yeah, so basically it's that thing of like understanding how you give and receive love and kind of your needs and ways that you need to feel loved, basically. And it's that thing of like, I do think that a lot of the time there's like miscommunication, and it's all that kind of thing of being like, if you are so used to showing your love in a specific way, another person actually doesn't even recognize that that's what they're trying to do, or they don't appreciate it as much because they would much prefer something else. And I think it does kind of cause problems in dating if you're trying to like communicate with each other and you aren't able to. And so this is why I really wanted to like chat to you about it, is because I don't think it's like a pseudoscience. Like I actually think that it's that kind of thing of like, it's just knowing who you are. So it's that kind of thing of it's all very well to take the test. It's like the fucking Pottermore test. It's all very good to do that, but like
highly scientific, you mean?
Yeah. Or like Myers-Briggs, do you know what I mean? Like, sure. It's that kind of thing of like, if you understand yourself, then you're going to be a better partner, you're going to be a better person to date because you kind of understand yourself and your needs, and then what you can kind of alter, because it's that thing of like, it's all very well knowing what they like, but if you don't give it to them, then you're not going to have like a lasting relationship if they need something that you're not giving them,
Yeah, it's like if you're not singing for the same hymn sheet.
Yeah.
Certain people like certain things and certain other people like different things, and it's just about trying to understand each other. And I think obviously in long-term relationships and stuff that comes into play, but I suppose it probably is the case even when you start dating someone as well.
Oh, totally. I mean, I have I slept with a guy for the first time and then got him to do his love languages test afterwards. Just because I was like, well, you might as well find out if it's going to progress.
And then it's the problem if you do that is if he doesn't ever speak to you again afterwards, you don't know if it's because he's just had sex with you or because you made him do that.
I'm like, just give me some words of affirmation. Yeah. We've done our physical touch, I know that.
They're getting words of any kind. I'm not fucking texting her back, the crazy bastard. I'm going to do I'll do the test later on. You, of course, Rachel, know your love language already.
Oh, yeah, already. I knew it before I even took the test. Are you surprised?
No, not at all. You're very in tune with your love languages, apparently.
Yeah.
But so I'm going to take it later, and we'll see if it correlates after we've had a listen to some of the submissions from you, the listener. They touch upon a few of the different types of love language that are described, and we'll have a listen to them. So this first one is it comes under the kind of banner the act of service. So this is a classic act of service, a classic romantic gesture.
My first boyfriend lived near me, and there was like fields behind our houses, so we went on a walk there, and there was this massive puddle that was about, it was like, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 meters across, and we kind of came to that, and I was just trying to figure out the best way around it, and he took off his coat and put it in the puddle like you see on the cartoons, and then tried to get me to walk over his coat, even though his coat was literally just floating in the puddle, and got really offended when I walked around it because that coat was doing absolutely nothing.
I think these cartoons have got a lot to answer for, to be honest, because they made that out a lot, that would happen, that, you know, you could put your put your coat down on a puddle and you could walk over it, but it doesn't make any sense because the coat's getting wet, your feet are still going to get wet even if you're standing on the coat. I don't know where that came from, because did that happen back in the old guy days?
The old guy days.
The grandparent days, like, see when your grandparents were walking back from the Barrettlands ballroom after a wee dance, you know, I was up the dancing, did they, you know, are you asking, are you dancing, you know, after all that, is that what happened back in the day? Did people
I'd like to think so. I mean, obviously we don't know, but I feel like courting was a thing, right? Like it had to be more of a thing.
Aye, but it doesn't mean that, you know, you can get, you know, hit with loads of acme and you'll be fine as well. Like, just because it's in a cartoon doesn't mean it actually happened at some point. Do you know what I mean?
What is acme?
I don't know, Wile E. Coyote. Like,
what, the big
explosives?
Oh, like TNT.
Aye.
I'm thinking Crash Bandicoot. I'm in a different world.
Oh, no.
Yeah, no, it is that thing. It's the cartoons and it's all the films and all that as well. I really like that. I think that I think people kind of presume as well when you're like a feminist, it's like, oh, like chivalry is dead, and it's like chivalry isn't dead. Like you can do nice things for people. It's just whether or not like you make someone feel uncomfortable, but like be like doing something. I mean, obviously it is a bit ridiculous putting your coat down on a puddle, but I would love that. I'd be like, oh my god, I'm so special and so romantic.
It's like, I don't want the door open for me. I want the metaphorical door to a higher wage. That's what I want.
Punch through that glass ceiling.
Yeah. So, no, because I suppose it's a chivalrous romantic gesture, right? And that's a classic example. Because I don't blame that wee guy for doing that, because if you believed everything you've seen on the telly and cartoons and all that, you would think that's what you do, and then in practice it doesn't work. But I think that's so... I think that's a good metaphor for a good example of what happens, especially when you get older. If you still try the romantic gestures, I would say 9 times out of 10, unless you're in a relationship or whatever, then it's more appropriate. But if you're trying some romantic gesture to sort of woo somebody, it never works out, you know, whether it's like, you know, any story that like any woman has got that I've ever heard about them getting sent flowers by some guy that they want to go out with, it's been basically some guy who's semi-stalking them, and it's pure creepy. Or do you know what I mean? And we've talked about this before, but there's, you know, sometimes the guys that just don't, like, they come across the creepiest, they think they're being romantic and like whether it's putting the coat down for the person or sending flowers to their work or doing some big sort of, you know, grand gesture sort of thing, it often, like the aforementioned acme, blows up in your face. But but so this comes under acts of service, and so let's talk about that.
Yeah, I think it's nice. How would you feel if someone did like an act of service for you? Because actually, like, we think of it as like, it could be a grand like romantic gesture, but it could also be something like, you know, you're really stressed out and you need, like, you have to go and do, like, run an errand, and then someone could go and run that errand for you. Like, that's a really kind thing. It doesn't need to be in this kind of like romantic realm, but I think that's quite sweet.
Where it kind of comes up in all these, like, you know, things to do with couples and stuff like that is an act of service would be like doing the dishes or doing the hoovering, or as you say, like driving something, getting the shopping or whatever, all these kind of domestic things. And I suppose what they're saying is if someone's love language is acts of service and you do the dishes for them and all that, they'll be so grateful, right? And if they don't value that, then you can do all that stuff and like, you hear these guys, oh, I don't know the dishes and all that, and then they never thank me for it, and they're still saying, that I'm a bad husband or whatever, because that's no their love language. That's basically what they're saying, isn't it? But also, I think the problem with that is that there's so many guys who do the bare minimum with like household chores. So it's that thing of like, wanting to be thanked for looking after the kids, when it's like, well, do you thank the mum for looking after the kids? It's like they are your kids and it is your job to look after them. Like it's not like you're doing an act of service there. And even the dishes, it's like, I don't know. Here's my counter argument to this entire love language thing, right? it's so early on. I thought because this is going to, this is good time as any, right? Right, so say your love language is acts of service, right? And all you want from your partner is for them to do the dishes and run errands and all that kind of. If if you're a partner, right, and you just do the dishes and all that sort of stuff, but you're no doing any of this other stuff, you're no giving the words of affirmation or the physical touch or quality time or whatever, you're just doing that, which is apparently their quote unquote love language. That doesn't sound like it's going to be a very successful relationship, which to me says that this entire thing is a lot of shit. No. I think you're right in the sense that like, but I think that's just human nature of like, if someone provides you with something, you look for the next thing. So if it seems easy to get them to do these acts of service, you might be like, well, I know they'll do that, so maybe you'll put more value into the other thing. There's certain people who you could be in a relationship with, right? And you could be doing 4 out of 5, 5 out of 5 maybe, and it's still not enough, right? Sometimes people want everything. They want words of affirmation, quality time, physical touch, acts of service, receiving gifts, and then you forget to take the bins out and you're still getting it in the neck. So, I think that just means that they don't really like the person. Well, that's very interesting because I think you're right. I like that's a surprise, Mark Jennings. Not because at a certain point, because like I was listening to like a podcast with the author of this book on it, and he was talking to couples and sort of stuff, and they're kind of going, and we're having these troubles and blah blah blah, and part of me was just thinking like, why don't you just split up? Because it just sounds, it's like, the sparks really went out the relationship, blah blah blah, and you're like, well, fucking split up. Like, it sounds like it's not working, and it's like, telling him that I just need more quality time is the key to it, and you're like, is it though? Or is that just, he's just trying to, do you know what I mean, sellotape the fucking relationship together, like with all this shit? Yeah, sometimes I worry that I am that friend whenever anyone's like, if I've got a female friend who's in a relationship like that, I'll be like, dump him. But it is that thing of being like, there's only so many conversations you can have, and if that is who they are as a person, and even if they're giving you everything or if they're not giving you anything, I think you can kind of sense when it's not right, and it's that thing of just being like, don't waste your life with someone that you're not really, really into. Yeah, totally. I mean, when you're having to fucking do all this stuff, into a 10-year relationship that's not working, you're rearranging the deck chairs in the Titanic at this point, aren't you? I mean, it's like, well, maybe if I give him a gift, then that will solve the problems. I don't know, man. Like, I think there is something to it, because I do think that to a certain, you do sort of need to understand how people communicate differently and stuff like that. But I don't know. I think it seems a bit too easy to just go, all right, okay, well, words of affirmation are that person's thing, so I'm going to do more of that. Yeah, life isn't black and white. Life isn't a percentage of what you get on a test. I just think it's a good toolkit. So I think it's a good thing of being like aware of maybe they don't operate in the same way. But at the same time, like what you say, it's that thing of it's not going to solve an irreparable problem. I found that so much with my ex-boyfriend, in that he was very, very into giving gifts, and he wasn't making a lot of money at the time. He was a student, and he would often choose to spend money on me, and I would say to him,
I don't need you to buy me that thing. Like, I don't need that thing. I would much rather we saved all that money and went on holiday together, and actually like shared that quality time rather than receiving gifts. And I really think that was something that, like, I could appreciate that it was really nice of him. But like, you know, he would get me things like, he would get me like a little poster or something for my birthday that was very thoughtful, but he could have got it in a small frame, like a small poster basically. And he got me like the extra large one, so it's massive. And it's that thing of like him getting me that, I thought this speaks volumes that he has so much value put onto the biggest thing I can get her will show how much I love her, because I can't give her it in this way or this way. And actually, like, when it comes down to it, I can appreciate that it's a really nice thing, but I don't get as much from that, you know, and I don't really, it was that kind of thing. And I think that when you see that coming up again and again, you kind of go, we've got different morals here, or we've got different value system. And I think that you should have similar ones when you're in a relationship, especially one that you want to kind of like last for a long time. Do you know what I mean?
Totally, yeah. And that actually leads us to our next submission, which is about gift giving. So we'll have a listen to this one here.
A guy I was seeing had a really weird obsession with his nan, as in she died years before he was even a thought, but he constantly referred to her. This is the same guy that I think I'd said before. He took pictures of his grand's headstone and like posted it. Anyways, so his mum had this really tacky necklace full of her ashes that is just a typical mum style necklace, and she gave it to him. And then maybe 3 weeks into us seeing each other, we weren't even dating at this point, we're just seeing it. We're watching TV and he goes, I've got a present for you. I think it's like the right time. And he takes off his necklace and he puts it on to me and goes, that's my nan. I think she really would have loved you. And I'm just sitting there like, oh, shit. Thanks. It's lovely. It's beautiful. Great. I appreciate that. That's so sweet. And then he's talking about how she would have loved me, that I was just the type of girl for him. And he went to go tell his mum that he gave the necklace to me. So I messaged my mum and I went, he's put his dead gran on me, please come pick me up. And she picked me up, left the necklace hidden somewhere, and just had to slowly ghost him.
I would be so freaked out by that. Also, I would hate to die and then people just give my ashes willy-nilly to people.
I'm a bit confused by this one, right? So is the reference, so they have sent us a submission before, it was actually in a previous episode where they'd explained that this guy would go to his grand's grave and take selfies there, right? What I'm confused by is, how come the grand's got a grave and ashes? They have one or the other. Did they do it differently in Ireland? Did they just do you have a grave and then, you get sent home and you've got, you're on the mantelpiece and you're the ashes? Like,
I don't know.
Who has both? That's weird.
I don't know. I never even thought of that.
Yeah. It sounds like either this family just fucking love death, right? Or that it's like a weird custom in Ireland where you have like a headstone and then even
the
if
ashes.
you've not get buried there. It's weird, I don't know.
I think jewellery is like quite a big gift in itself. So having the dead gran inside the necklace, that is really like, I would honestly be like nervous about this guy. Like I would be like genuinely running a mile and like deleting my number and all that, changing my keys.
Totally. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, it's like, that seems too soon as well to be given it.
3 weeks, of course.
Yeah, maybe she'd met the gran and, they had I know the gran had died before he was born or whatever, but it's like, you would think that maybe if they had a relationship, it was like, I want to give this to you and blah, blah, blah. But it seems a bit extreme to the point where, I don't know, maybe he tried that before, you know what I mean? A couple of days.
He's trying to give it to everyone.
The third date, right? This is my move. I'll give the grand necklace and then take it back to mine.
Maybe it's haunted. Maybe he just wants rid of it. That's so weird though. And I think as well, it's weird when people say, people talk about dead people as if they know what they would have said. And it's like, well, you don't know what they'd say. And I would hate people to chat on behalf of me when I'm gone. It's
what Rachel would have wanted, for her podcast place to be taken over by, I don't know.
Oh my god. Yeah, after my
Katie
bloody...
Tunstall? I don't know, some
Katie Tunstall? I love your references, Mark, because
Amy
they're always
McDonald.
15 years out of date.
Sure, that's when I paid attention to popular culture. So this is gift giving, right? Now, I think this is a thing. Guys, I think, fall into that trap quite a lot, right? Basically trying to, buy love. Whether love or attention or, try and use a gift or money or a present to try and, woo somebody, basically. And I think it starts off as small as, like, a guy trying to offering to buy you a drink in the club to try and buy 5-10 minutes of your time to chat you up or whatever, to obviously, buy, like, fucking Wayne Lineker buying some lassie that's just walked into his bar a yacht. I don't know what he does, but do you know what I mean? There's that kind of weird thing. You hear these people they've got hundreds of money and they just, like,
throw it at them.
They'll just try and throw it at them to keep their attention and keep them around them, So I think that's something that is obviously quite common for guys. And you probably, like, I think you hear about a lot of women who, guys will slide into their DMs. Sugar daddies is basically what we're talking about here, isn't it? It's going for the guy trying to buy the drink at the bar to the sugar daddy, essentially.
I think the whole money thing is interesting because I think money says a lot about you, like your upbringing and all that kind of stuff. Like, I was always kind of taught, like, not really to talk about money, like that it's vulgar to talk about money. But I also feel like real guilt. Like, I've been on a few dates where I like it to be even, and then sometimes, if I get, like, drunk or whatever and they pay more, and, actually I did a really bad thing the other day, Mark, where I'm just a bit ditzy. Like, I just didn't think. So basically,
What?
I didn't read the menu properly. So I was on a date and we were getting wine, and then I was like, oh, like, I quite like red wine now, and, like, we was just looking at it, and then I was like, oh, do you know what? I think Malbec's maybe the nice one. So I didn't look at the price of the bottle of Malbec.
Of course, why would you? He's paid.
Well,
Classic Graham move there.
It's not, though, and I was so embarrassed because I was like, oh, I hope he doesn't think that. But it was like 40 quid, this bottle of wine. Sure. And I just felt so bad because they didn't really, like, they obviously didn't know me that well, so it could have been such a move of me being like, oh yeah, like, is this on you type thing? But it was that thing, and then afterwards I felt really, really bad because I was like, this looks like I've just been, like, using him, which obviously wasn't.
The thing is, there's people who would do that without a second thought and would just be like, oh, well, this guy's asked me out, so, he's paying and this is part of me, getting, if he wants to get with me, it's got to be the good stuff. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, again, it's like everybody likes gifts when it's appropriate, but, like, when it's not, nobody likes to feel like they're being bought. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but would a girl ever buy you a gift that it wasn't, like, your birthday or something?
I suppose, like, when you're in a relationship, they'll go, I've seen this shirt and thought it would be nice for you or something like that. I guess that's quite nice. But, like, I guess it's all they're thinking of you or whatever.
Do you know what I always think about with that? Is, like, attractive by proxy. So, like, whenever I've had boyfriends and I've, like, bought them clothes, I'm always like, oh, they'll look really good in that, and then I'll look really good beside them because we'll look like a fashionable couple.
I suppose the thing for women as well is, like, dressing the guy and, like, changing his style to make him stop dressing shite and, actually give him a bit of fashion sense. So I suppose that's probably more where it would work. But I mean, I think for me, like, the thing that springs to mind is, because I've never been one for, like, offering like a woman a drink at a bar, not because, like, I wouldn't, like, not because I'm pure tight or something, but just because I don't want to put somebody in that position. I just think it's a bit lame to be pure, like, like, that's the first thing you need to do to try and start up a conversation or to keep them in the conversation or something. I've always sort of been like, well, if I'm chatting to somebody at a bar, if they want to keep talking to me, they keep talking to me, and if they don't, they can leave, but I don't want to, like, try and...
I think you like a bit of confirmation. So, like, what I've observed with you is I think that if there's, like, a group and if you like someone, you like to not necessarily approach straight away, but just to kind of like let the night happen and see whether or not they show an interest before you would go up. So I think if you were to go up and offer a drink, that's you kind of going on you're offering.
Yeah,
I think you step back.
My tactics have changed over the years. Do you know what I mean? Like in my younger days, I was different. I would go up and I would be a bit more proactive and stuff. And I basically went from being like a box to box midfielder to being like, you know, a defensive mid pinging balls, you know, 40 yards and all that. Like, so I just sort of sit back now and like, you know, I read the play better now. Do you know what I mean? Whereas before I would be, you know, running about everywhere and trying to, you know, like putting more effort in.
I think that's a safer way to be, is to just kind of like not put yourself out there until you get some reassurance.
I think a lot of guys, that's like their go-to straight away. It's like, oh, can I buy a drink? Yeah. Before they've even, that's like their opener, before they've said hi or anything, you know what I mean? Like,
but that's a really simple way to say that you're interested. And I think that we've been a bit spoiled with dating apps, but like in the real world, you do need like physical things for someone to know if someone likes you.
Well, it's just that it's normal, I suppose, to do that, but I'd always just thought it's a bit like, I'd just try and do that. I have broken this rule once. This is actually quite funny. So, like, I never used to do it for years, and then I remember there's this lassie, and it was in a nightclub, right? And she was gorgeous, right? Far out of my league. And I can't remember. I think we might have, like, I think I got off with her or something, right? Mm-hmm. Or maybe not yet. But I think we got chatting anyway, right? And then she's like, "Buy me a drink." She like said to me, "Buy me a drink," and I was like, "Nah, I'm no, I don't why." Like, because I was like, nah, it's like, I wasn't going to get a drink. I'm not going to just go specifically buy her one. So I said nah, and then she's like, "Come on, buy me a drink," and I was like, "Alright, whatever, man." Like, you know what I mean? It's no skin off man, it was fine. Yeah. And then I literally got the drink, right? Brought it over to her. I handed it to her, right? She, no word of a lie, downed it in one, handed the glass back to me, and walked away. And I was
shit.
I was astounded. I was to the point where I was impressed by the brazenness of it. I was just like, do you know what? That was great. But it also that is exactly why I would never. You didn't
want to do it.
I've never usually offer because that's, you know, I mean, I remember, like, I was on holiday once and I was talking to this lass and she's like, "Oh, we don't even bring money out when we go out because guys just buys drinks on it." And hey, listen, who could blame them? Do you know what I mean? But I never wanted to be that kind of mug, basically.
I think when you're at like college or whatever, I do think that it's quite fun with your female friends to go out and see how many drinks you can get bought for you. 100%. Like, it is definitely a thing where you're just like, because it's at that point, especially because you're so young and like you don't really mind about like looking like a fanny, basically. So I think it's that kind of thing of like just having kind of games with it. And not games, that sounds like unkind, but do you know what I mean? That kind of thing of just being like, oh, fuck it, like let's see how many drinks we can get bought and like have a fun night and all that kind of stuff. And obviously you kind of grow out of that and think it's a bit immature, but at the time it is quite fun.
To get back to the love languages then, so that's where I feel like I do feel it is kind of different for men and women a wee bit, generally speaking, and all that.
But that's the whole point, isn't it? Like,
yeah,
of so like working it out and working out what you need and what they'll give you.
So I sort of think you'd be weird to hear a guy being like, "Well, my love language is gift giving, and I just want showered with gifts all day long."
No, but do you think that? I think it's because there's less cool. I think that the market is less geared towards giving guys gifts.
Saying that, I mean, to be fair, like, it's pure, you know, you see these videos and the PS5 came out and it's like, "Oh, she got me the PS5. Oh, I'm the luckiest man in the world." Not. So I suppose maybe it is actually, maybe some guys it is their love language, or maybe some guys just like playing the PlayStation. I don't know. But I feel like, I don't know, I feel like it's not something that's just across the board, like, you know, you're going to get an even mixture of these things. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I think it seems like the shittest one. Unless there's a lot of thought behind it. I just think like I'm
the fifth
not
Beatle,
bothered.
this one, isn't it?
Yeah. It's the one that you're like, oh, I hope I'm not in it. You know, like I hope I don't get it as your main one.
Because it can just seem shallow and materialistic as well if you just try and, if you're just using as obviously material things and buying people stuff to, as a substitute for love, basically, and there's a classic sort of stereotype of like a spoiled kid or something that, their parents are quite distant, but they get everything grown up, and then they grow up, as wee spoiled brats who got everything they wanted except their parents' love or something.
Yeah.
So in a way, I think it's quite a dangerous one. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I also think it can be dangerous. I think my dad's love language is gift giving, but it's not even necessarily, I wasn't spoiled. I was I had to, I didn't get all the things that I wanted deliberately so that I didn't become a spoiled brat. But for example, now being an adult woman, every time I see him, he's like, are you okay for phone chargers? Because when you're driving and you need to stay safe, and he's always giving me phone chargers, and I'm I have about 7 now because you've given me so many.
I think part of it is as you say, it doesn't always need to be something pure expensive or whatever. It's kind of that whole it's the thought that counts sort of thing when it comes to gift giving, and I suppose it is quite nice when somebody does give you something that's a wee bit thoughtful. And I guess it's a legit one. I will concede. But I think we can both agree out of them all, it does seem a bit
shitest.
It's the shitest one, isn't it?
It's the time that goes into it and the thought that goes into it.
So these next couple that we've got here probably more come under the banner of physical touch, I think. So we'll have a listen to the first one of these now.
I was with a girl, and it was the first time we were taking things upstairs to the bedroom, and from the get-go, as soon as the clothes came off and we got down to the horizontal mambo, she began to speak in this. She was fatal cross, and she started speaking in this Southern American accent. And if you want dirty talk, express yourself. But it was fucking so strange. She was talking as if she was fucking Kentucky. And I'm like, you're for just down the road. What is going on here? And then I started kind of laughing, quite silently laughing. And then the shaking in my body and my shoulders shaking somehow must have gave her the idea that she was down cracking. So she started saying more things, and the accent got broader, and it was just a vicious, horrible cycle.
That is so cringy. I feel like there needs to be some elements of dirty talking that, you're just working out what each other likes, and, you can kind of find out that it's they don't really like this kind of dirty talk. But changing your entire accent is I feel like if you role play, there probably needs to be a little thing of being I'm gonna role play with you, not just be how are you doing, y'all?
So that's quite a weird fetish. Do you think that comes from an insecurity or something? That's oh, I can't talk, because what, being Scottish isn't a very sexy in the bedroom and all that. If you've listened to Scottish, you ever watch Scottish porn and that, it's always a bit kind of it's not the same as the Americans when they're going oh yeah, that's great and all that. And so it's just oh, fuck me, man, fuck me, and you're oh, there's no,
Is that Scottish porn? I've never seen any Scottish porn.
Have you not? Well, you're missing
no.
out,
Why would I seek that out when I live in Scotland?
I don't know. Sometimes you want to, get a wee bit of realism in your pornography.
A taste of the local cuisine.
Aye. Yeah, I think Scottish doesn't count as a love language. That's for sure.
Well, that's because Scottish men can't express their feelings.
Oh, man, I really fancy you, so how about
it? So I think that the thing with the whole physical touch thing is, I think it's a tricky one, and I think it was hard kind of finding examples of people who physical touch would be their first, their main love language, because I think that it feels a wee bit selfish. If if your love language is to be tactile and do all that kind of stuff, I also feel you get something from it as well. And I also think there's an element of horniness and all that kind of stuff. So I think that's the one that feels a bit strange to me, and it doesn't make the most sense. But also I was kind of thinking that like physical touch. Like I love, being touched, and I love, holding hands, and, the excitement and the spark of all that. So I think with a partner, especially like being a woman, is I think like often guys want to be physical and have a lot of physical touch. So I've never really felt like I really, really needed it, or that it, that it's hard to come by.
There is people that are more touchy-feely than others.
Yeah.
But I think this is another one, and this kind of comes back to my problem with the whole concept, is that all of these apply to everybody. Like, everybody needs physical touch,
But no one's saying that everyone, like, you want all of them. That's the whole point, is you want all of them. It's just how you naturally operate.
I know, but I don't know if I believe how much you can really scale it, because I think it depends on a lot of different factors, and even just where you're at within a given day. You can want physical touch, in the evening, and in the morning you've wanted a gift or whatever. I know it's like what they say with horoscopes, it kind of applies to whatever the horoscope says. It could apply to anyone. I do feel a wee bit like the love languages thing. It's like each one of these are just things that humans want in a relationship and in their life. So I think you kind of need all of them to a certain extent. So I think it's like, I don't know if you can really sort of, measure them percentage-wise and all that sort of stuff. I
think the percentage-wise thing is like a bit of a gimmick. But I think the whole thing with them is that some people can't give some of these, So like it is that kind of thing with like, some people can't do physical touch. They don't like, showing.
There is definitely people who are less physical and all that, I would say. That is true, to be fair.
I think that's the point of it, is like recognizing that it's like some people can't give those certain things, and if that is important to you, then it matters.
It's funny though as well, like, because you said, this is the one you have the hardest time understanding. Because it's, in a way, like, if you were to be very stereotypical about it, you would look at these and go, well, obviously women love the gift giving and guys love the physical touch. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just.
But it's not true.
Well, it's not, obviously, but like, you would think as a guy the go-to would, like, if you. Typical guy would just pick out physical touch all the time, or acts of service, because they think that means a blowjob. But like, pretty much that's where your mind would go as a guy.
Your duty.
I would say, to be fair, like, I'm saying that about guys just going to that as their go-to, but I would actually say it's probably more likely that more women have love language, physical touch as their love languages. If there's a lot more touchy-feely women than men.
Yeah, and women want to have sex,
and probably there's more of a problem with men not being able to be touchy-feely to women who've got that as their love language or whatever.
It's that toxic masculinity thing of being like, if you've grown up and, you are taught that a man is a certain way, and your dad maybe isn't very good at showing that he is, proud or loves you, not giving you words of affirmation or physical touch, then, you think that's the norm, and then you're unable, when you grow up, I think it's more difficult to... to do that if that's not your environment.
Most boys probably don't hug their dads, or their dads don't hug them a lot, which is a thing that's probably changing and is good. But I would say even people of my age, and again, probably depends on the sort of environment you grew up in, but it's generally like a lot of guys still have probably never hugged their dad, maybe hugged them once at a funeral or some shit like that, or if they're going away somewhere, but like, yeah, it's not very common to hug.
But we're designed, we're designed to have physical connection, and it's so valuable. Like, I saw this thing and it was saying that like they did this study, it was really sad, like a study in an orphanage.
Babies die if they don't get a hug.
Yeah, or that they like don't grow as tall because you respond so much, your brain chemistry responds so much to physical touch. Like we do actually need it to survive. Someone was actually saying it shouldn't be a love language because you can live without gifts, you can live without acts of service, quality time, words of affirmation, but physical touch is so important.
But what kind of life would that be? So this other one, so this also is a kind of bedroom one here. This might come under the banner of a couple of different love languages, but we'll have a listen and see.
So I was about 21 at the time, and I'd been with my boyfriend for about a month, as in like, I think it was official for about a month, thereabouts. And we were at my flat in London, and I remember it was summer because at the time I kept getting really dizzy in the heat. I just couldn't handle the heat at the time. So we were doing the deed. We're in my bed, and he's just coming up to finishing. And as he finishes, he goes, "Oh, I love you." Literally, as like that. And there's me sort of really quite dizzy and kind of lightheaded, kind of like, what? Thinking he's just sort of blurted it out in the heat of the moment, and then he looks me dead in the eye and he's like, "I love you." And I just didn't know what to say because it obviously felt too soon for me. So I just sort of really awkwardly gave him like this sweaty hug and was just like, "Oh, that's nice."
What do you say when someone says "I love you" and you're not ready to say it back? You can't say anything that's nice.
Well, I think what I would say is that if you are going to tell someone you love them, do it at that exact moment when you're about to ejaculate in the middle of sex. That is exactly the appropriate time to blurt it out. Any other time is because people always, I don't know the right time. I want to tell them I just don't know the right time. That is exactly the right time, and you should always wait until then. Because if you do it right before and then you
ruin
finish,
climax.
No, then you finish and then you say it again. They know you mean it because you've not just said it.
It's like up. Appreciative. Oh my God, I love you. You're so good at this.
And I still do, even though. And I wouldn't say it again if I didn't mean it. No, no, that's weird. So you're saying, there's nothing you can say. You get two options. You either lie and go, "I love you too," and don't mean it, or you
you can't lie. It's like faking an orgasm. You can't lie with "I love you," and you shouldn't fake an orgasm because
you can fake an orgasm.
Well, I know you can, but what I mean is like the only person that it'll affect you both so badly. Do you know what I mean? Because the trust is gone, and also you'll never kind of get beyond that. Do you know what I mean? Like it's if you say "I love you" and you don't mean it, then it means that they can't trust your words of affirmation. Do you know what I mean? Like if that's your way of doing it, and then actually if you're lying, then they'll constantly be second guessing themselves whether you actually even mean it or not.
Well, this is a thing that comes up a lot in this love language thing, particularly with this words of affirmation one, right? Because you hear like a lot of women saying like, "Oh, men don't know how to express their feelings." Even in that thing, I was listening to the author of that 5 Love Languages book, and somebody asked them a question. They're saying, "My husband doesn't know how to express his feelings," and I'm like, you hear that all the time, right, with men, and obviously as we've just been discussing with guys that have not got enough hugs off their dad or whatever, right, there is an issue with masculinity and all that, and people not being able to express their emotions to a certain degree. But what I would say is probably happens a lot more than people realise is it's not that men don't know how to express their feelings, it's that in a relationship they know that if they did say what they were really feeling, it would be the fucking end of the relationship. So like when the woman's going like, "Oh, why don't you tell me how you feel? I just want to know how you feel," blah, blah, blah. Because the guy's not doing it because he knows that if he really says it, they're not going to like it and they don't want to get to that point. So it's like that way if you're, if you've been going out with somebody, whatever, and they say, "I love you," and you don't feel it back, that's like the ultimatum of like, right, well, I'm either going with a lie or I'm like, well, I don't love you, so I don't know where we go from here. So that's that thing. I wonder when women say about men not being able to express their feelings, I actually wonder how true that is, and I wonder how often it's actually them mistaking that for the man just knowing that if he said what he was really feeling, he's just not saying it because he knows it's too hard to say. Who can? It's too hard to go, "I don't want to be in this relationship anymore." It's too hard to do that.
I think you're putting that on to the scenario of men can't express their feelings, because there are so many men who like might be completely like besotted with someone, but that's just not the way that they naturally can express themselves.
I'm sure that happens. I'm sure that's the case. But I think that a lot of times it's so easy to go, men don't know how to do this, when it's not the fucking truth. We know how to express their emotions. A lot of men do anyway. But there is situations where if it's like, you know, if there's a big push for like, what is this? How do you feel about me? I love you. How do you feel back? Then, like, you're not going to be pure, like, you don't want to have the conversation of like, look, I'm no feeling this, because that's fucking the end of the road, and maybe you're not ready for that. But at the same but your other option is to lie and be like, oh, I love you too, and then you're saying all this shit that you know you don't really mean. And so it's not that you can't express your feelings, it's that the guy doesn't want to express feelings that he's not actually feeling. And I think that must happen a lot. For me, it's that thing of like, and I think this is true of men and women equally, right? See if you're at the point where you're going, they're not, you know, the behaviours that they're showing, it seems like you're not that into this relationship or whatever it is. If it seems like it, it's probably the case, right? Because see if somebody really likes you, you fucking know about it. Whether it's, you know, whether their love language is fucking doing the dishes or telling you every fucking 2 minutes or whatever.
I do hear where you're coming from, and I do agree that, you know, if someone's into you, they make it clear, and if someone's into you, they make it work. I do agree with that. I just think that, yes, that scenario that you've described, you know, I'm sure it happens often, but I do think that, you know, there are a lot of times where it's like people don't even think to express their love in a certain way. Do you know, like people don't even think, like they're like, yeah, I know that I love them, so why do I need to do a big, you know, act of service, or why do I need to, you know, tell them that I love them every day when then we're fucking married or something? Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
You know, my ex-boyfriend definitely loved me for the majority of the relationship, I don't, but like just couldn't express it in that way. It just wasn't like he just couldn't do it. It just wasn't natural to him or whatever.
Let me ask you a question, and I'm sorry if this is too harsh. Is that what you're just telling yourself?
No.
How do you know for sure that
because,
he did love you as much as you're saying?
Because he showed it in different ways.
Okay.
And, you know, and did a lot of things that he wouldn't necessarily have wanted to do, but he did it because he loved me so much. And also, I think when you're in a relationship, you just understand the person, you work out their way of expressing love with these love languages, basically. So I don't think I'm being naive. Like I know when I've been with people who've not really liked me, or, you know, not been in love with me, but I also really do know when someone does.
But do you take my general point that, like, do you think that this accusation towards men about men, oh, they just don't know how to express their feelings, do you think that there's at least a percentage of that time where what I'm saying is that basically they can express their feelings, it's just that the feelings that they would express if they did wouldn't be the ones that they know the partner wouldn't want to hear it? Yeah,
and this is like my worst nightmare conversation because I need constant reassurance that someone likes me. So to have that thing of me being like, oh, I need the reassurance, and then them not giving it to me, and then to be like, oh, it's because they don't like me. That's like my worst fear. So I suppose this conversation just makes me go, oh, that makes me feel a bit sad, rather than like, you know. But I also think you can trust that you can read people. And I think a lot of the time, you know, we can like fantasize things and be like, oh no, it actually was this and it actually was that. But at the same time, we do know when someone is like pulling away or whatever.
Well, that's the thing though, because that's what would probably the cynic in me would see when I look at the love languages thing. To me, it seems like it's almost a way to rationalise, like,
when someone's not really into it.
They're not really into it, but maybe their way of showing that they care is, you know, doing the housework or something, rather than telling me that they love me, because that's an easier pill to swallow at the end of the day than finding out your fucking wife or husband doesn't really love you. You know?
This is my favourite topic of conversation, and you just have to shit all over it, Mark. I'm like this. It's fun. We can do the test. We're gonna have so much like fun and laughter to find out what each other's love languages. No.
See, be honest, I do think there's a lot more to it than I initially did.
Good. I'm glad you've come around to it a bit.
No, I do like, and honestly, and the next submission I think kind of runs off the back of what you were saying, and I think it's quite relevant to the experience I've had as well. But we'll have a listen to this last submission before we, of course, get on to finding out what my love language is.
And mine, the listeners don't know what mine is either.
And yours, yeah. So I'll do my test, and then we'll discuss both of our love languages. Before that, we've got this last submission, which again is on words of affirmation. And as I say, I think kind of relates to what you were just discussing there, Rachel.
Hi, Rachel and Mark, Canadian listener here. Very happy that you are doing an episode on love languages. So my main love language is definitely words of affirmation. I had an ex whose main giving love language was definitely acts of service. It was really difficult because he basically couldn't do words of affirmation. Like, we were together for 3.5 years, and he only said I love you a handful of times. And I brought it up with him. Like, I was like, I really need you to say this to me. Is there something wrong? Like, is there a reason why you can't do this? Do you not love me? And he'd be like, no, of course I love you. I love you so much. Yeah, it's really weird. I don't know why I have a hang up about that. But then would continue to not be able to do it, and never told me I was hot, like. And I think one of the things that's tricky with like words of affirmation is, I mean, less now, but at the time I certainly felt like quite pathetic, right? Like, why do I need somebody to tell me these things? But the truth is I do need it. I really need those things. But for him, it was just basically impossible to do, and it really hurt me, and also was like a huge wedge in the relationship just generally. And he'd do all these beautiful, beautiful things for me. He'd do acts of service. And I had a really hard time seeing that was him telling me that he loved me, because I was just like, I need it in this way and you're not giving it to me. So, I mean, if I could go back, I would definitely work harder at recognizing the ways in which he was telling me that he loved me. And I would hope that he would be better at giving me what I needed. So hindsight is 20/20.
Do you know what? I did a cabaret with this American girl when I was at drama school, and she said hindsight is 20/20, and I thought she'd made it up, and I was like, honestly, your cabaret is so good. I was like, honestly, that's such a clever phrase you put together. She was like, it's an actual phrase.
Oh my god.
Hindsight is 20, like vision? Oh my god.
You are so smart, do you know that?
I think this is what it all comes down to, and this is why I'm like quite a big fan. Right, I haven't read the book. I think that will not surprise people that I
shock.
I get a little idea in my head and I'm like, I love the idea of this, and then I'll just chat about it.
I've looked at an Instagram post and each slide is one of the love languages. No, I knew you hadn't read the book. You know much about it, Rachel. I actually thought I had the book on my Kindle for years ago. It turns out I never, but I never read the book because, I mean, it's quite simple to get. You get the point. It's 5 things.
I mean, maybe we should have read the book, but the thing is as well is like, it's not rocket science. Like, it is literally just, you can work out what it is. I think when you get older, it's just kind of that thing of being like, finding out what you actually need from a relationship or from dating someone, and actually being confident enough to ask for it. Because like, you can be pure confident and be like, this is what I would like, but it's actually just like being confident and comfortable enough in a relationship to ask what you actually want from it. I think there's elements as well of like, you're not going to, I don't really think people can change that much. Maybe that's wrong, but I just think we are quite like, you can grow, but I don't think that you fundamentally change. And I think if you naturally just feel more able to express your love in a certain way, yes, you can make more of an effort. But it sounds like, with this submission is like, he couldn't do it, but he was giving it, and he was really giving it in other ways. And maybe that just means that you're not actually compatible. And we can say hindsight is 20/20, but like when we're meeting a partner, we need to make sure that like we are making each other happy. And if you can't make each other happy and be speaking the same language, it's a miscommunication, and ultimately that's that's the biggest problem in relationships, I think.
Yeah, I think that's very true. Like, and I think there is people who are just not compatible because they've got differing, temperaments. And I think, like, I've been criticising this to an extent, but I would say that last submission actually did really hit home for me, because I feel like I was in a similar situation in a previous relationship to that guy who was described, basically, where I felt like I was in a relationship and I felt like I was pretty much doing all of them other than words of affirmation. I would say I'm probably just because as I sort of joked about at the start, like, I'd just been overly soppy and all that kind of stuff. I guess I'm just not that kind of guy. I don't probably wear my emotions on my heart on my sleeve as much, maybe. But I felt in the relationship, I would have a lot of back and forth about, like, whether I was pure committed to it or whatever. It was as if I wasn't given enough. Whereas I felt like I was doing pretty much as everything that you could, because I was doing, spending a lot of quality time, physical touch, acts of service, even gifts and all that, nice wee things, you'd pick them up and all that. So I was doing all those things, and then I'm still hearing, like, they weren't feeling loved, it wasn't enough for them. And so that made actually, in that context, this makes a lot of sense, because clearly their thing was words of, or maybe at least one of the things was words of affirmation, and I wasn't fulfilling that. And I was getting frustrated because I was doing all these other ones, and I felt like, well, they weren't being recognised.
But if that's not their love, if that's not what they appreciate, that's what it all kind of comes down to.
So they were getting frustrated by that, and I was getting frustrated that all the other stuff I was doing wasn't getting recognised. So it actually makes a lot of sense, to be honest. So I feel like I would say I have to come round to it on that regard, because, as I say, I have had that experience. And to be fair, I think part of my cynicism is, like, I've not been in a lot of relationships and stuff like that, and I think it does relate a lot more to when you've been in a long-term relationship. I don't know what it's like to be married or some shit, so I don't really know. But from that experience that I had, I would say that there's definitely something to that, and it is a good framework of making sense of when things aren't working out.
I actually think that you can have different love languages with different people as well. Someone who is more, like if there's, an actor that I'm like friends with and we're very tactile with each other, you might not appreciate a hug from them because you'd hug them all the time. But maybe if they came up to you and they were like, listen, I really liked what you did there, and they wouldn't normally speak about that kind of thing, you value it a lot more. It's just kind of like having different relationships and having different love language correspondence with them, I suppose.
Aye. I do wonder though, to an extent, because, like, it's all well and good sort of saying that maybe if you're not doing their specific love language, it would have, like, that's the reason that things didn't work out. But maybe sometimes, like, I think sometimes in terms of compatibility, maybe certain people just aren't going to work out. And even if you were doing all five, right, it's like, in a way sometimes, and I think a lot of people maybe could relate to this in terms of relationships, like, you can try and see if you get criticised for something that you do in the relationship, and then you start trying to do it a lot, right? You could do it hundreds of times, and then you don't do it once, and then it's like, you never do this, right? And I think a big thing in a relationship that's not working out is, like, you need to realise, like, you're not storing equity. Because it's like, it doesn't matter if you've done this thing 20 times because you're consciously trying to do the thing that they think you don't do. Because the first time you don't do it again, it's like, all those other times I forgot. You're not building any credit up. Do you know what I mean?
Don't you think that comes down to attraction, right? So it's that thing of, if you're naturally attracted to someone who gives you this love language, if that doesn't come naturally to them, like with my ex, if my ex-boyfriend, it doesn't naturally come to them to give me all the words of affirmation naturally, then that feels like a deficit in them, because I am attracted to people who do that. So even if they try really hard to do it, if that's not something within them, then there's something missing, and there's you kind of recognize that you're not actually compatible.
Yeah, because they're not going to give you what you need, or what you want. So
And also, you don't want it to be an effort. Like, you don't want anyone to feel like they have to try super hard. And I think when you meet someone that's right, I think, you know, we can intellectualize it, you know, do all these tests, Myers-Briggs it, you know, love language it. But actually, a lot of it's in our bodies. A lot of it is in, you know, if something feels right. And I think that, you know, sometimes even all, you know, people can tick all the right boxes, but if it doesn't feel right, it doesn't feel right. And you need to kind of recognize and trust your instincts and your gut.
Absolutely. And the last thing you want to be doing in a relationship is doing anything through gritted teeth or by being dragged kicking and screaming, because, you know, being dragged by, like, when you're dragging your heels, having to do stuff and doing it, you know, an obligation, and you don't really want to. So I think that's the case, that, like, it's one thing to recognise somebody's, you know, like, what they like, and try and consciously try and do that, but at a certain point, you know, if a relationship's not working, it's not working. Yeah. And you can read all the books you want about that, you can do all the tests. Sometimes you've just got to recognise if it's not working and leave. But definitely, it's definitely a good framework for doing it. I'm actually quite keen now to see what my love language is. I'm quite interested, so I'm going to go and take the test, which I think takes a wee bit of time. So we'll go to a wee interlude now, and we'll come back with my results here.
Buzz in.
Right, this is it. So,
okay.
Your primary love language
Wait,
is...
don't tell me. I need to guess.
Okay, what do you think it is?
Okay. I think your primary love language is words of affirmation.
Correct.
Yep. I think your second one, I wasn't sure about this. I think your second one might be acts of service.
Correct again.
I think your third one might go wrong here.
Well, I'll tell you this, right? Words of affirmation, 33%.
Okay.
Acts of service, 30%. So
okay.
You've got the main two bang on there, and there wasn't much in them. I was surprised by that.
It's almost like I know you, Mark.
Almost.
Maybe the third one, is the third one quality time?
Yes. 17%.
Is the fourth one physical touch?
Yeah, 30%.
And the fifth one is gifts?
7%. Yes.
Oh my gosh!
You got it all right.
I'm so proud of that. I thought I'd make it wrong. There you go. I'm very intuitive.
So what does that mean about me then? So I like people to tell me.
Yeah, I mean, you're a stand-up comedian, so you want people to tell you that you're funny by laughing.
The words of affirmation I want to hear is ha 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 ha.
LOL.
And then acts of service wasn't far behind, 33% and 30%. That's pretty close.
Well, I was thinking that sometimes you have a lot of work on, and I was thinking if they ask you any questions where it's like someone helping you out, if you're like got a lot of work on your plate.
Pretty much the ones I kept pressing. It's like, if they lighten your load and, you know, help you out when they know you're busy, I'm like, 100%, please.
When they know that you've got editing to do. And then I thought you'd want to spend time with the person that you're with. And then I thought that a lot of the questions with physical touch is to do with, it's more kind of friendly versions of physical touch that I thought you're maybe not into the kind of PDA of that or the friendship side of that.
I picked a lot of the kind of like, they'll help you out with something over like give you a hug kind of thing. So
yeah, because I don't think. Yeah, and gifts, I just knew they could. I actually thought you'd say no to the gifts just because you didn't want to look like we've had this big chat about gifts being the worst, and then you're like, but I would like a little gift.
I also just sort of think I don't think I'm like that materialistic a person really. So no. I think that with that, I don't want for much in terms of like actual things. I don't really buy myself a lot of stuff. Never mind.
Yeah, you
want
don't.
Anything. So like, I think that makes sense. Right, should I guess yours then?
Yeah, but do you know what's funny is I fucking nailed that, and I bet you don't get mine right. You'll get my first one right.
Well, I'm guessing it's words of affirmation as well, is that right?
Yes, 37% words of affirmation.
37%, okay. I'm going to say physical touch next.
No.
No?
No.
Okay. I feel like okay, quality time then.
Yeah, quality time, 30%.
Yeah, so no far off and all. Aye, that's like,
Spend time with me.
I do feel like that's more of a thing for women a wee bit. Like, I don't think you hear a lot of guys being as annoyed that they don't spend enough time together. I mean, it's generalisation again, but I feel like that's a bigger deal for women, the quality time
Just think
thing.
it's nice. It's nice to do nothing with someone, but have
Yeah.
the presence of them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's what I really missed in lockdown. My flatmate was on a Zoom date, and I heard like a male voice in the flat, and I was like, oh, it feels quite nice.
And running towards it. Oh, is there a man here?
Well, the first thing he said to her was that she looked really nice, and I remember just walking past me like, oh, so lovely. Words of affirmation, and also just a male presence.
Right, so words of affirmation, quality time. Number 3 for you, I'm going to say, I'm a bit stuck here. I would again, I want to go for physical touch, but I think it might be acts of service.
Why do you think it's physical touch?
Just because you are quite a touchy-feely sort of person.
Yeah, it's acts of service,
Yeah.
17%.
Yeah.
Because
okay.
it's what I want, it's not what I give.
It's not what you give. So you want acts of service, so you want them fucking
running about
running
after me.
you. Sure.
Or a nice surprise. Like, I would love like a big gesture.
Okay. So I'm just gonna guess that receiving gifts is next then.
Yeah.
And then you put physical touch at the bottom.
I mean, I didn't choose it. It's just what I wanted. It was gifts 10% and physical touch 7%.
So if you're wanting to treat Rachel right, listeners, tell her nice things, spend loads of time with her, run after her all the time, give her hundreds of gifts, and then if you want, you can feel her up a wee bit.
Consensually, yes,
in
please.
that order.
That sounds honestly great. That sounds perfect.
Sure.
But do you know what I mean? Like, I do think it says a lot about you, what you want in a thing, and I think it's good to know what you want when you're dating, to be like, this is what I think I deserve. I'll do my best to give you what you want if you do your best to give me what I want.
I think words of affirmation being my top one makes a lot of sense, particularly because my top dislike would be words of condemnation. I don't want
bad reviews.
I don't want to be told all the stuff I'm doing wrong all the time. I don't like that either. So
yeah.
I think they go hand in hand. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, that's interesting. I think.
Ours are kind of similar.
Yeah, well, I thought they would be. Like when I started guessing yours, I thought, I wonder. They're kind of. I mean, they're different enough. You having quality time is the big second one. Is the main difference.
I think the whole quality time thing that we didn't really kind of chat about, but like I do think quality time.
The one we didn't receive a submission on actually.
Yeah, I know, because you don't want soppy submissions, so you don't want to be like, tell us a time that you're having a really nice time with your partner.
I think the quality time thing though, like the differentiation is like you can spend a lot of time with someone, but if you're just watching the telly, or obviously crucially now just like on your phone all the time when you're around them, and that's probably a big pet peeve in relationships, is like folk are just on their phone constantly when they're trying to spend time together. So I guess that's where quality time comes in, when it's you're doing something together, focusing kind of on each other and no having those types of distraction.
But I think of quality time, yes, it's like having the company, but I also think that I like quality time in the sense of experiences. So like I really like with a partner, like going on holiday with them, because you're making, it sounds really cheesy, but like you're making memories with them that are way more valuable than like gifts, for example. And I think that is just like it's like nice being in a relationship for that reason.
I think that's kind of part of the reason as well, not to kind of keep talking about the pandemic and all that, but I think the thing with COVID has been that if you've kind of not really been able to do much except for just sit in the house with somebody, it's hard because you can't, like, you can go out and walks and all that sort of stuff, but you've not really been able to have as many experiences, even if it's just, you know, we've talked about before how like a lot of the time going to the cinema and restaurants and all that can kind of cover up for a relationship that's maybe not working if you just do loads of things. But
Yeah.
at the same time, like you say, it's like part of growing in a relationship is like doing loads of different things and growing together and experiencing all these cool things. And it's been hard, I think, the last year, if people have kind of had to be a wee bit stagnant in a relationship and they've not maybe been able to go travelling or go on a holiday or just even go and do just normal things and meet friends and all these kind of things. So I think that's probably been a tough one the last year with quality time, and I think that's something that hopefully when things open up again, like people will be able to do that. Because the thing is, like, basically we've had a lot of time the last year. We've all had a lot of time, but it's not been of
quality. So crucially, was I right that love languages is a very interesting topic?
I mean, I was never really against doing it, to be honest.
Yes, you were.
I just thought it sounded sort of... It's because it's that meme and all that, isn't it? It's like, my love language is fucking Subway sandwiches.
You got that in your head of just that people are just using that as like as an example, and it's got no kind of merit. I do think it's an interesting, like these other things, Myers-Briggs, and I really wouldn't say horoscopes, but I know people, some people are into that. But I do think it's an interesting framework to look at a relationship and to try and know a wee bit about yourself and your partner. And I think it can be helpful. I think with all these things, though, it's worth taking with a pinch of salt. Like, I wouldn't live and die by it, but... Yeah, I do think it's a useful tool for helping understand, particularly a relationship if you're having some problems or whatever, and it's a good way to fix it because if you're somebody who likes words of affirmation and your partner realises that and can try and help out a wee bit with that, and somebody else likes quality time or extra service or whatever, if you can, I suppose if you can understand that a wee bit better, it's it can help a relationship and maybe it can help you communicate better and stuff like that. So I guess I do guess that it's a useful way to look at it. But as I say, I wouldn't live or die by it. I would take it with a bit of a pinch of salt. But it's certainly something worth exploring. And I think particularly if you're in a relationship as opposed to just dating someone, it could really help with maintaining just trying to understand each other. Yeah, I used to always say it when I was like recently single and I was really sad about being recently single. I used to just be like, I just want a guy to stroke my hair and tell me I'm pretty, and that was before I even knew that was two of the love languages. Yeah, it's all you really want. It's all you really need. So I think that about covers it then for love languages. So thanks very much for listening. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you have, please do remember to give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. It really helps us reach other people because it puts us up in the algorithm and all that sort of stuff and can help other people find out about the show. We're really happy with the show, and if you've been listening and you enjoy it, we hope that you feel the same way, and we just want to get it to more people now. We think that a lot of you are getting something out of this, and we really enjoy recording the shows, so it's just about trying to get the word out there. So please do tell your pals and share it on social media and all the rest of it, and if you could leave a wee review, it does help us with it popping up on other people's feeds and things like that. So that would be great. And obviously, as ever, you can subscribe to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or anywhere else where you're listening to this at the moment. And there is also video versions of every episode that are available on YouTube. And if you'd like to slide into our DMs, you can get us on Instagram at Debating Dating. If you want to send us any submission ideas, any voice notes of experiences, topics you want us to cover, or any words of affirmation, clearly we love a little compliment, then you can send that to us on Instagram or Twitter, or you can get us on our email address, which is debatingdatingpod@gmail.com. So, thanks very much for listening, and we'll speak to you soon. Bye!